Not a real bass, nor was it a VST software instrument, but rather a clever signal processing chain. If you're wanting to record bass guitar in your demos without owning a real bass guitar or without shelling money to buy a VST, stick around and I'll show you. Quick note is that I've only tried this with metal mixes and demos, but I'm sure this will work with other applications like rock, funk, or whatever you feel like producing. If any of you happen to try this trick with any other genres, please let me know how it works for you down in the comments below. The things you'll need for this trick to work are stuff that I am assuming you already have. A guitar, an interface, some kind of DAW. I'm using Reaper. All of the amp sims that I'm using are 100% free, and there will be links down in the description so you can use them too. Otherwise, feel free to use whatever amp sim you feel like using. Now, if you haven't already guessed what the trick is, I'm just pitch shifting my guitar. That's it. I know. Big shocker. The first decision you'll have to make before recording is which pickup you'll use. I found that using the neck pickup gives the most bass guitar-like quality with this trick, but using the bridge pickup works if you want a more aggressive sound with more pick attack. Here's a quick comparison for you. I personally like the neck pickup sound a lot more, so I'm going with that one. Since we're treating this like a bass, we don't want to be playing it like a guitar, since it will be pitch shifted down an octave in the mix. That means wherever you're playing chords, just play the root note. Unless you have certain sections in your song where you want the bass to be playing chords, then go for it, but otherwise just play the root. I've already got my bass recorded, so I'll walk you through my signal chain and how I went about processing the guitar to sound like a bass. The first thing that I did, obviously, was to add a pitch shifter and tune it down one full octave. This already sounds good, but the dynamics are now all over the place. So to fix that, we're going to add a compressor. I have my threshold set very low to completely crush the dynamics in the signal before it hits the amp. We don't want dynamics here, this is bass. Set your ratio to taste. Mine is set anywhere from 2:1 to 4:1. I'm setting it to 4:1 for this particular instance. Set your attack and release both to 0 milliseconds. Be sure to check that auto makeup box as well to get your volume back. Now I'll add TSE BOD. These are the settings that I like to use that sound good to me, but play around with it and see what you like. I wouldn't recommend having the gain up too high, otherwise the tone really starts to fall apart. After the bass overdrive, I'll add a plugin called Bass Grinder. This is a free bass amp simulator, and it sounds absolutely killer on bass guitar. I like the dragon head and cabinet sounds, but again, play around with it to find what sounds best for you. Before I play around with any post-amp processing, I'm going to add an EQ before the overdrive. As you can tell, this sounds kind of ugly and not in a good way. In the EQ, I'm going to add a high-pass filter at 75 Hz just to cut out any incoherent bass noises that muddy up the mix. Next, I'm going to take a band and sweep around the low end to find the spot where the rumbling is and bring it down. On my particular signal, it was around the 150 Hz area. Now that the low end is a little bit more under control, I'm finding that there's a bit too much clankiness in my tone. So to fix that, I'm going to add a low pass filter at around 4 kilohertz to manage some of the higher end frequencies. And finally, to control the rest of the clank, I'm going to add a band and sweep around the 2 to 4K region and find the spot where it sounds very scratchy. Which for me was around 2.6K. You can A/B this and listen to the difference. I find that adding EQ before the overdrive in the chain helps to clean up the tone so that the post-amp processing is much more manageable. Now after the amp, I'm going to add another EQ and add a high pass filter again at 75 Hertz and a low pass at around 5K. Now I'm going to add a band and cut around 800 Hertz so that the guitars have more room in the mix. Finally, I'm going to bring in another compressor at the end of the chain and set the threshold about halfway down from where it peaks with a 4:1 ratio. Again, make sure to check that auto makeup button. And there you have it, a somewhat convincing bass guitar tone. If you want to take this a step further, I would recommend playing around with a multi-band compressor just to stomp down on the dynamics even further, but this works fine as it is for my uses. Now obviously this isn't going to sound nearly as good as a real bass guitar. A real bass is going to sound better 100% of the time, but this trick works in a pinch if you need a bass for a demo that you're working on, and it's better than nothing since it's noticeable when it's gone from the mix. I would not recommend using this on a final mix unless you're producing for yourself or if you're desperate. This trick is pretty much only for demos. I hope you learned something from this. If you happen to use this trick in any of your demos, please share them with me. My socials will be down below. You can DM me on Instagram. I would be happy to listen to them. And if you did something different that works better for you, please let me know down in the comments below. Let's grow our knowledge together in audio and visuals. Links to my socials are down in the description below, as well as any links to plugins that I used for this tutorial. If this helps, please leave a like and hit subscribe if you want to learn more about audio, video, or photography. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.